So, Red Cortez's flagship Green New Deal, a big initiative. This was the great contribution she was going to make. Got absolutely crushed in the Senate. 57 against with 0 in favour. Oof. I think you've just been told, love. I think you, as a little upstart new congressman who managed to sneak in on 15,000 votes, you managed to actually get in there and become a congresswoman. No, not having any of your bollocks, are they? They're completely rejecting the way that you are operating. You are not in any way trying to build bridges or do democratic politics as it should be, as in through compromise, through discussion. You do it through browbeating and intimidation and harassment on Twitter, and bam, that's what you get. That is what you get for pathologizing your opponents and calling them, frankly, immoral people. That's what you get. You get fucked when it comes to the actual vote because no one wants to work with you. Because, believe it or not, Miss Cortez, you are not actually a dictator. At least not yet. God willing, any sensible people won't give you any kind of real power. You can sit there from the cheap seats, but we're the ones doing stuff, blah, 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 blah. Instead of doing any kind of self-reflection, she just said, I encourage the senators to vote present, which is an abstention as far as I'm aware. McConnell tried to rush the Green New Deal straight to the floor without hearing. The real question we should be asking, why does the Senate GOP refuse to hold any major hearings on climate change? Why don't you actually go and sit down and talk to them and discuss these things with them? And then you'll realise that they have points as well, and the things that you're asking for are broadly ridiculous in how extreme they are. Nobody will agree to that because the things you're suggesting just are so radical. And it's not like some point of pride to be a massive radical in a democracy. Democracies change by increment over time. You should have gone for something more sensible, more localised and more achievable, and maybe you could have done it, rather than just whacking on the table going, well, look, these are my religious beliefs. This is the dream world I would like to see, and we're going to vote on it. And if you don't vote for it, man, I'm going to call you a bad person, aren't I? I am going to say that you actually hate the planet, you hate the climate, blah, 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 blah. Look at that fucking face. Thunderous. Thunderous. I can't believe these misogynist, patriarchal, racist, GOP capitalist billionaires are all voting against my deal to save the planet. How could they? They must be really bad people. When I'm king... Honestly, she looks like a dictator in waiting, doesn't she? So I'm going to take to Twitter, the GOP's climate delaying is costing us lives and destroying communities. Yeah, no one really thinks that. Like many other women and working people, I occasionally suffer from imposter syndrome. Do you? That's funny. I wonder why that is. I wonder why you would feel like an imposter in your job as a congresswoman. I wonder. I mean... People who know their stuff, people who actually know what they're doing and deserve to be where they are, don't suffer from imposter syndrome. Those small moments, especially on hard days where you wonder if the haters are right. Oh, they are. But then they do things like this to clear it right up. If this guy can be a senator, you can do anything. Well, you managed to become a congresswoman, which is pretty fucking incredible. So, yeah, I mean, really, that's the case. But what's she talking about? Well, she's talking about this.
This is, of course, a picture of former President Ronald Reagan naturally firing a machine gun while riding on the back of a dinosaur. You'll notice a couple of important features here. First of all, the rocket launcher strapped to President Reagan's back, and then the stirring, unmistakable patriotism of the velociraptor holding up a tattered American flag, a symbol of all it means to be an American. Now, critics might quibble with this depiction of the climactic battle of the Cold War, because while awesome, in real life there was no climactic battle. There was no battle with or without velociraptors. The Cold War, as we all know, was won without firing a shot. But that quibble actually serves our purposes here today, Mr. President, because this image has as much to do with overcoming communism in the 20th century as the Green New Deal has to do with overcoming climate change in the 21st. The aspirations of the proposal have been called radical. They've been called extreme. But mostly, they're ridiculous. There isn't a single serious idea here, not one. To illustrate, let me highlight two of the most prominent goals produced by the plan's authors. Goal number one, the Green New Deal calls essentially for the elimination of airplanes. Now, this might seem merely ambitious for politicians who represent the densely populated northeastern United States. But how is it supposed to work for our fellow citizens who don't live somewhere between Washington, D.C. and Boston? In a future without air travel, how are we supposed to get around the vast expanses of, say, Alaska during the winter? Well, I'll tell you how. Tauntauns, Mr. President. This is a beloved species of reptomammals, native to the ice planet of Hoth. Now, while perhaps not as efficient in some ways as airplanes or as snowmobiles, these hairy bipedal species of space lizards offer their own unique benefits. Not only are tauntauns carbon neutral, but according to a report a long time ago and issued far, far away, they may even be fully recyclable and usable for their warmth, especially on a cold night. What about Hawaii? Isolated 2,000 miles out of the Pacific Ocean. Under the Green New Deal's effective airplane prohibition, how are people there supposed to get to and from the mainland? And how are they supposed to maintain that significant portion of their economy that's based on tourism? At that distance, swimming would, of course, be out of the question, and jet skis are notorious gas guzzlers. No, all residents of Hawaii would be left with is this. This is a picture of Aquaman, a superhero from the undersea kingdom of Atlantis, and notably here, a founding member of the Super Friends. I draw your attention, Mr. President, to the 20-foot impressive seahorse he's riding. Under the Green New Deal, this is probably Hawaii's best bet. Now, I'm the first to admit that a massive fleet of giant, highly trained seahorses would be cool. It would be really, really awesome. But we have to consider a few things. We have no idea about scalability or domestic capacity in this sector. The last thing we want is to ban all airplanes and only then find out that China or Russia may have already established strategic hippocampus programs designed to cut the United States out of the global market. Mr. President, we must not allow and cannot tolerate a giant seahorse gap.
I see we have a shitlord in the Senate. That was fucking amazing. I love the way that he was playing that straight. That is just the absolute best way of showing her exactly how you feel about her. She is absolutely ridiculous. She has come in on a ridiculous mandate, she's making ridiculous proposals, and she has a ridiculous goddamn expression, and she'll be ridiculous when she's hunting down the traitorous Democrats who voted against her Green New Deal. And who are these people? Well, we know who these Democrats are, and they're going to feel the force. I mean, they might have reasonable objections like, I agree with the proponents of the New Deal that we need decisive action and ambitious goals to protect our planet for future generations, but at the same time, I believe that the best way to fully address this challenge is to set realistic goals. Well, that's what you fucking would say, isn't it? You're a straight white man. Of course you'd say, well, we need a realistic way of actually achieving these goals, or else we're not going to achieve these fucking goals. What a son of a bitch you are. You probably laughed at his velociraptor slide. Awesome while it was. You probably were just thinking, well, that is good. You know, maybe Reagan had some points considering what I'm surrounded by these days. But holy shit. Unironically, what on earth is she doing? You know, you are making yourselves ridiculous. And it really does come from the fact that of what the Green New Deal is. It's a set of ridiculous proposals that is a non-binding resolution, as we've been told so much, which makes it exactly what Anna Kasparian describes it.
The Green New Deal is not legislation, okay? It's not a detailed policy proposal that members of Congress are gonna vote on soon. The Green New Deal is a non-binding, it's like a list of ambitious goals, right? It's like a wish list. This is what I'm hoping that the country moves toward. And so it is the framework in which members of Congress will draft legislation. It is not legislation on its own. So to look at the Green New Deal and to come up with facts and figures or estimates about how much it costs is ridiculous because it's not laying out the specifics of the policy.
Yes, Anna. But it's also even more ridiculous to try and get the Senate, which is made up of varying ideological groups and two different parties, to agree to one party's ideological view and proposal to dominate the way that all legislation that the House will make going forward proceeds. That's ridiculous. What you are saying is, look, why don't you just agree to our wish list? And they're saying because we don't want the same things. And then you're like, well, fuck me. You know, how can we get anything done if you don't just agree to everything we've asked for? How can we get anything done unless you don't agree to every single thing we've already thought? Honestly, it's such a dumb thing to go to any kind of democratic body and say, right, okay, everyone's going to have to start thinking like us now. You know, this is what we want. This is our wish list, our dream. What it's not legislation. It's a non-binding resolution. We just want you to all agree with us all the time, and that'll be the baseline from which we use going forward. That is a fucking unbelievable thing to do, especially on such a divisive issue. It's so ridiculous. Like, you can't sit there and say, well, our ideological perspective is the correct one, and therefore. That's just not how it is. That is literally what they're doing in Venezuela. You know, that is what dictators do. They sit there and go, no, this is the only way, and everyone else, well, they're a problem, aren't they? But thankfully, you guys are trapped within a system that is accountable, that is balanced, that was unbelievably well thought out by the founding fathers, and you can't actually go around that. So you just sat here holding your dicks, looking like an absolute bunch of idiots, after getting totally crushed with your stupid non-binding resolution. Next time, have some fucking humility.